Hey folks, Steve here with another Prussia's Glory video. We're going to be looking at turn 2 and beyond in the Rossbach battle scenario. In the previous video, we took a painstakingly amount of time diligently going through the majority of the game mechanics. And to be honest, we didn't necessarily hit everything because they just didn't all come up, but it definitely took me a while to describe everything, and there was a little bit of hem and haw, which I apologize for, but in the moment, trying to, I think I have the rules right, and then I question myself, and I have to go look at it, which is probably made for kind of a rough video, and I apologize for that, but hopefully it's going to be much smoother sailing. In this previous video, we had the Prussian cavalry come through and really decimate, eliminate the Austrian wing there. There's still a few remnant units that are disordered, some that are still routing, but the other forces are starting to move up. So you can see these guys are kind of bringing up the rear, rushing ahead, and these guys are still moving forward. Now, I made one correction from last video to this one to favor the Austrians to make this a little bit more interesting. Is I moved the artillery to the front of the stacks, and that's okay so long as you don't enter an enemy zone of control, in which case those artillery have to go to the bottom. So the reason why we're doing this for these handful of hexes is if the Prussians move their forces adjacent to these stacks with the artillery as the front unit, then they're going to be shot at by the artillery units in defensive fire. So it makes it a little bit more of a puzzle for the Prussians to decide what are they going to do. Now, the one thing they can be trying to do is fire on these guys. That's going to be one option, and if they can open things up a little bit. But these artillery are always going to be a tricky thing because the values on adjacent hexes are pretty darn high. And just to see, like, let's say the center one here with a 7 bombardment, if you look, let's say 7, you roll a die. I mean, you could be doing multiple steps of damage and forcing retreats. So you kind of have to decide, I guess, if you're going to assault a position, a set of units with artillery on the top stack, can you survive the canister fire and still penetrate the lines? I've also made some minor adjustments around, and I still need to do some more apparently. Some adjustments on which units are the front units. I kind of didn't look at that super closely originally, and I should have done that, so I'm just making some minor adjustments. Because you can change stacking as you move, as so long as you don't have units in a Zoc. So it's easy just to say, hey, I want the units with the best morale in the front because I want them to have the best chance of fending off the Prussians here. Now, and then we also have the thing where cavalry units, if they get engaged in combat, not all of them did. Some of them were overstacked for frontage and got left behind for some of these things. When they're done fighting, they become disordered. So there's going to be this decision point here we have to make as the Prussians to say, are we going to move some of these guys that are disordered? They only have half movement when disordered. Are we going to move them into attack and then hope they succeed in a rally die roll so that they can actually do a full-fledged attack and not be disordered? So it could be very easy actually to scatter these guys, and maybe what's better is to, move them around, kind of flank out around, recover, and then kind of swoop in from the other side. And I think that's maybe better than just trying to bum rush them as is, just create a new flank position. And that may mean that we're not going to do that until turn 3, but I already feel like we're in a pretty good situation where unless the Austrians can do well, there's still a pretty good chance they're going to become demoralized, and that's pretty important. We can also be picking off some of these other units. So a lot of different things we could decide to do. Again, it'd be really risky to run these guys up next to these artillery, get blasted, have the cavalry scattered, right? Not a good idea. Let's probably be better to send some over here with their half movement, rally. They avoid defensive bombardment for being next to these guys, and then next turn, they can maybe have something happen. But we would want them to move out of range of the artillery. So if they move these artillery, they won't be able to fire on them. So there is this interesting just cadence of watching out for the artillery, because artillery is very powerful, and trying to figure out where can we get the best shots off for the turn. The same thing here. Like if these artillery fire, then they're going to be um, not able to fire in defense, and maybe these guys walk up and try to attack these hexes because artillery can only fire once per turn. So if they fire offensively, they're not going to fire defensively this turn. So there's almost a question of like, what do we do? Do we try to assault and then wait for a better opportunity to fire our cannon? That's one reasonable choice to make here. Or we just fire with one and we leave the other one to do a defensive fire, in which case we wouldn't even, one bombardment point is not enough to do any results. So we kind of have to make some decisions there as the Prussians. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to run through a lot of this turn off camera, and I'll check in to show the results of things. And if there's a really important new mechanic that maybe comes into play, we'll talk about it. I think the thing that we didn't cover quite enough in the last video, just because it was kind of a frantic, figuring out how to do the order of operations correctly. Again, if you cause more losses in combat than are taken, meaning maybe you're going to deal 4 step losses, your opponent takes a couple and then retreats away, that means that your units can advance and then potentially have momentum, right? So you get something for the extra loss points that you didn't get to inflict on the opponent. That can turn into die roll modifiers for a combat that's going to happen coming up, and or it can turn into the sweeping charge with cavalry, which can further cause a heck of a lot of havoc. And the way that works, just to cover again quickly in case you didn't get a full understanding, basically that stack that just advanced, or they don't even have to technically advance, but you can pick a unit to do this with. Then you have to roll a die. You're going to add their morale level, and if that number is an 11 or 12, then you get to do the sweeping charge. If you fail, it's like you couldn't convince the cavalry to pursue, and so you don't get to do it, and then you just become disordered. Even after the sweeping charge, you still become disordered, but if you get that second attack, that can be really useful, because if you do the sweeping attack on the unit that maybe you put the momentum marker on, you're basically getting that extra attack with some extra oomph and die roll modifiers. So there's definitely a big advantage in setting up an excellent cavalry charge situation, which over here was just gravy because of the additional bonuses. But here we don't have that +3 turn 1 bonus anymore, so things are now going to be kind of dangerous for the Prussians. They can't just lean on the weight of the die roll modifiers. They are going to have to think about, what do they want to do. I think an outflanking maneuver to create that historical like concave shape might be best, because if they can get around and surround these guys, then they're going to have nowhere to retreat to, and we'll just gobble them all up that way. So yeah, there we go. Anyway, we're going to do the command determination and the movement, and maybe I'll show things at the end of movement for the Prussian half of the turn. Okay, so I decided as the Prussians that discretion might be good here to get us set up. So what I did is I rearranged, I moved sort of this way, and I moved the cavalry out around and rallied everybody successfully. So the Prussians are kind of setting up their own line as best that they can. Again, it's like the artillery duel could be a problem. There's one stack that maybe could be the one to worry about, or the one that we could have maybe tried to make something happen for, but I wanted to be set up better for turn 3 rather than this turn 2. But it is the Austrian-French turn, and the infantry managed to become efficient, but the cavalry and the special group are all degraded. So these guys are going to have half movement this time, and these guys are going to have half movement, but then these guys here will be full movement for what it matters. Now, their choice of movement is going to be kind of tricky. They have to decide where do they think they can get the most bang for their buck um, against the Prussians. And what I think we may try to do, they've got one guy sticking out here, and maybe we can get two sets of units here and try to hurt them that way and sort of create a fanned out position that won't be as susceptible. It's really tough. It's really tough to figure out what's the best move here. It is difficult. I mean, for sure, I think the Prussians are going to win. I think it's just, can we do anything to hurt the Prussians enough to make a difference? And then, like, these guys are set up in the town where these hussars, if they wanted to run in there, are going to have a harder time with the town as it happens. So it's a little tricky, but I'll do the movement and we'll kind of see where things are at. Okay, here we are after the Austrian movement. You can see there's almost Austrian, French, whatever, coalition. You can almost see there's like something resembling a line here that we've established. Unfortunately, these guys did not rally, and I need to roll for him. And wow, he actually becomes disordered. That's cool. So there's some disordered units. These guys failed to rally, but I've moved everyone around. The artillery's moved. These guys have stuck there. Just trying to create something that allows us to apply pressure against the Prussian position and not get outflanked. So if you're really looking for a line, here's our line, and what we have is an attack here on that exposed Prussian unit is what's going to happen. So when we look at this, it is going to be this unit and this unit. So it's 12. I don't think I could get anything better. Well, that's almost just worse. I'm trying to get it so that there's a morale advantage, but it's still going to be 12 to 7, which is going to not quite be, it's not going to be 1 to 1. It's going to be 1 to 2, which is a problem. Well, maybe we'll roll high. Anyway, so these 2 units here, maximum frontage that we can show here, with this guy being the lead unit with a 7 morale versus this guy's, which is a 6. So I'm pretty sure when I look at the rest of the combat table modifiers, let's see, it's not a flank attack. We weren't quite able to get into a good position for that. And the critical thing is, these guys are not going to be having to fight up here because we focused it on the point. Because if you have engaged units or units that are near each other, like, they have to fight, I think, is the way I interpret that rule. So nobody's demoralized. The odds are fine. Terrain adjustment, there is none. So this really is just a 1 to 2 odds with a +1 of the die roll because of the higher morale level. So this is where things get a little grindy, right? We're grinding it out with infantry here. First touching of actual line troops firing muskets at each other. So 1d6 +1. You roll a 4, +1 is 5. 5 is a 1-1-R, which is after LP, any units with less than 5 morale retreat. So they each take a step. So this guy takes a step, and this guy takes a step. but he still has 5 morale, which means he is not going to retreat. So he holds, and that's it. So there's a little bit of attrition there. They're going to be locked. That was the only real combat that we have on here, and it did not give the Austrians what they really wanted to get. So that's it, and we're going to have the coalition morale, or the joint morale. The Prussians didn't attack or do anything. The Austrians did attack but didn't achieve anything. So this is going to be a really straightforward process here for adjusting morale with what they've got over there. Now I'm wondering, there's a chance that the French Austrians will actually get some morale back, despite not having any CS. So if I'm just reading through the way you play it, move the current morale marker up to the lowest filled box. Yeah, so this actually, I think this means that the morale just goes up to this guy right here. Now, it's interesting how that works. So they've gotten a breather, but we still have to roll to see if they demoralize. And they do. I rolled a 1, and as you can see in this chart, it's a 1. So despite the Austrians feeling like they've got a sense, they're a little too shaken up, and they become demoralized. So what? Wow, I wasn't expecting that. All right, so yikes. All right, so this is going to be in section 12.4 of the rules. When an army becomes demoralized, any of its units that is within 3 hexes of enemy units. Oh shit! Yeah, that's bad, because we just moved everybody within 3 hexes of enemy units for the most part. That's not good. Must make a morale check. All units have a -1 morale value for this, and all future morale checks. Army demoralization happens after blah 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 blah. If it becomes important which units retreat first for EZOC purposes, players should alternate retreating 1 unit at a time until all units have retreated. Note that any routed units lose their ZOC immediately. So there's going to be a +1 to command state rolls, which means that these guys are basically not going to be able to activate very well at all in terms of getting their full movement. They're going to have a -1 for all morale checks. In rallies, a -1 if attacking in close combat. They're going to give the attacker modifiers if they get attacked in close combat. Routed units of a demoralized army that is attacked immediately become captured, and unrouted units of demoralized armies may pay 1 movement point to voluntarily leave the map through a friendly map edge, but they do not count as eliminated. Now that's something we might want to do. That is something we might need to do. May pay 1 movement point. Okay, so we can keep it from being an absolute mega victory for the Prussians by trying to get guys off map. But until we do that, we actually have to do the morale check. So let's see what happens. I'm just gonna run through that. I'm just gonna run from left to right and take care of all of these guys and see what happens. And I'll show the aftermath of those morale checks. Okay, here we are after the swath of morale checks. So even these guys who haven't even gotten to the fight are like, oh, maybe this is a bad idea. And then we've got a number of guys that have become routed. We've got a number of guys who have become disordered. oddly enough, there's some cases where our units that were previously disordered held strong, and even some guys that were like you would have just expected them to leave managed to stick around. So this is kind of important. It's like this provides the Prussians an opportunity to kind of surge forward and smash up a lot of these guys and put the hurting on them to a degree that um, I think is going to probably seal the deal here pretty significantly. Because you can just kind of see, like, if these guys are disordered, they get eliminated. We're just going to keep knocking stuff down against the Austrians. So we're going to go to the 1630 turn, 1630-minute turn, and go to the Prussians. I think we're just going to go ahead and roll their activations, and they're good, easy peasy. And let's see, and no one's in column. Nobody on the Prussians are routed. So now we're going to have Prussian movement. So yeah, I think this is going to be pretty good for them. I think what we'll probably end up doing is sending some of these guys down, probably knock these guys out, probably knock these guys out, send these guys around, probably knock them out too, to be honest. So yeah, I'm not even worried about trying to take on the artillery. If I can just get into a good position to smash the rest of these routed units and cause trouble, that might be enough to tip the scale. So let me take care of Prussian movement, and we'll kind of see how things are set up. Okay, here's the movement. Again, I can be a little conservative in the north and not worry about it. We could fire, um, and it might be worth doing. I just then we don't have defensive fire, and I think that's what worries me a little bit. Um, because we could certainly get into a position where we can't quite hit somebody. And I just don't think we would do enough damage. So I'm content to leave these guys, holding a position while we slam, and the artillery kind of, we can't quite hit each other the way we want to hit each other, I think is the key thing. Um, it's kind of giving these guys the initiative to fire, but they're kind of not in a great position to do it. But down here is going to be a sweeping cavalry flank on the weak and disordered right wing of the French army. So let me go do the die rolls. You can expect that there's going to be a lot of momentum attacks because we're going to have probably, we're going to attack here to here because we're going to have to, here to here, here to here, here to here, here to here, and then there might be a shattering swing deeper depending on what rolls we get and everything else. And this would actually put many units in pretty safe shape to be disordered down here. We have to worry about that artillery, but given these guys are routing, I just don't see it being that big of an issue. So yeah, let me take care of the combats. We'll show the aftermath here on the second to last turn of the Prussian half of the turn. Okay, here we are after the Prussian combats, and pretty significant progress made. We've eliminated several more units, though the Prussians are starting to take attrition here. Will be offset a little bit by combat success. The Austrians, whoops, this is the one. Austrians actually got one because one of the Prussian attacks, I rolled a 1. It wasn't good enough die roll modifiers, and he actually routed, which is not great. Kind of puts some things in danger. But this flank is just so gnarly that we're starting to run into my counters just hanging out on the edge of the map. So not good at all for them. But it's going to go over to the Austrians now, and we'll do some rolling for command ability. So that's a big. Oh no, the cavalry. The cavalry are good. Not that there's any left on the map, really, but there you go. And for the green and blue, they are, oh, no, they stay degraded. Okay. So what do the Austrians do? That's kind of tricky. I think we gotta follow some rules. So first things first, we got to do routed movement. Um, so this guy's gonna go bop bop, and he's still on the map. This guy's got to go bop bop, um, bop bop, and two hexes. So kind of getting forced back, having trouble. So what do we do here? Do we think we can fight, or do we try to leave? Do demoralized troops just bug out? Because we could try to do normal movement, but so many guys are disordered right now that it's not like we can fight back with much. And in fact, we would probably get pulverized if we tried, given how bad the morale is on a lot of these units. Um, we could maybe plink away at some guys and take some steps off, but I think we're really starting to run out of options. Let me do some movement and let's see if the Austrians can make something of anything. See what happens. All right, here we are with the coalition movement done. There's not a whole lot we can do. I think a lot of this now is, can we get guys off the map with anything left to work with, really, honestly. And we're going to have to fight. Now, I didn't put a bunch of the locked markers on because I'm remembering, like, okay, these guys all do have to fight, um, whether I like it or not, or whatever the case may be. So some stuff's just going to get eliminated. I can't disengage. I can't get them off. Uh, I can't get them to move because they're still engaged, which is a problem. I could try to rally them before combat, but that's going to be not so good. I think one of the few things that I can try to do is fire at this guy with artillery. So on the three column of the bombardment table, I might as well take a pot shot. So what we do is we look and say the target is 2 hexes away. He's got a 3. He is in the top of the hex, and there's no die roll modifier, so we just need a 4, 5, or 6 to do something. And I rolled a 2 and I missed. Oh my gosh. And I'm going to mark him as fired by just putting an artillery moved on him. There are not artillery fired markers, but you can use the artillery move to denote that, because if they do move, they can't fire anyway. So that's probably the easiest way to handle that. Now we could do the rally phase, and unfortunately, ugh, I mean, I don't think this guy's gonna. We can try it. Try to rally. Let's do it. That he actually does it. That's surprising, but it happened. All right, we'll do this guy, and he does not succeed, so he stays disordered. And do okay 4. That is not enough. Make sure I'm doing that. All right, let me just run through the rest of these. We'll show the aftermath. Here we are after the rallies, which actually didn't go as bad as it could have gone. And I think we're going to have a couple of combats here. These guys are going to try to attack this town, maybe beat some French back, or not French. Gosh, guys, the blue's throwing me off. These guys can take some Prussians out, maybe. And then these guys are going to have to fight. And then these guys are going to have to fight. And it's going to lead to probably some deaths for the Austrians either way. So we'll take care of those combats quick. Then when we attack a town, the town modifiers, they're not crazy or anything. It's for infantry, it's a -1, which isn't too bad. And these are all infantry that are going to go in there. Some Croats. So yeah, so I mean, this would only be, I mean, really, um, 6 steps coming at 5 steps, so it's going to be 1 to 1. The morale is going to be equal with -1. So this is actually kind of bad, but 1 to 1 of 4 on a 1 to 1 is an EXR. So steps divided by 4 is 1 step. So they're each going to take 1 step. So he'll take his step and he'll have to retreat, which okay, he just becomes disordered, and then this guy gets lost. So kind of a wash, other than the Austrians lose yet another unit, which is not great for them, but killing Prussians might be the only thing they've got. And I'll just put it, because I don't have a blue one handy. Let's say this guy's been disordered. And then over here, we would have 4, 8 strength against 6. I think these guys could actually just withdraw. And I don't think there's any penalty for them doing so, so I might just let that happen. Yeah, I think we would just have these guys withdraw. There's no reason to have them actually fight. Okay, and so then these guys could, it doesn't necessarily do them any good to do that, but they can keep them engaged, maybe try to push the cavalry back. Oh, actually, no, we don't want to do that. That's a bad idea, because then these guys would double up next turn. Here would be, oh boy, 1 to 3 with, yeah, I don't think this is good. Nope, not good at all. This guy's just on a suicide run. 1 to 3, roll to 1. Yeah, he's kaput. So much for that. And then here is going to be 1 to 3 with a whole bunch of negatives. Yeah, rolled a 6, so the number of negatives actually matters. 2 minus 5. Oh, nope, he's dead. Yeah. Nick so good. Okay. Well, that kind of shaves that situation off. Remove engaged markers, and we're going to do the morale adjustment again. So let me get prepared for that. Okay, here are things after the morale adjustment. The Prussians are starting to go down a little bit because they're taking some losses, but they're still in a pretty safe place. Meanwhile, the French are about to be broken. Certainly going to be broken by the end of the next turn, probably. It's really going to depend on how the rest of this stuff shakes out over the next couple of turns. Or the last turn, I guess, because we are at the last turn. The Prussians are going to go. We'll roll for their activations, and they're good for both. Haven't had any issues with that. And then let's see. Routed movement. Yeah. Um, 1, 2, 3. That poor guy. All right, now Prussian movement is going to be kind of interesting because we do want to finish off a lot of guys. In fact, while they're demoralized, if we move down and grab these guys, they become captured. So I think we're going to do that. So let me do the Prussian movement where we're going to wrap things up pretty neatly in a bow, and we'll go from there. Okay. Oh, I forgot to roll for that guy, and he's good. All right. So rallying is done. Very broadly speaking, the Prussians are in good shape, and really, it's all about how do we want to end the how do we want to end the game. I would love to break the French army, and so I think we might do that. I did decide to go ahead and run at the artillery just because I can, and we'll see what happens. So how this is going to work is I think we're gonna have these guys fire. I don't know. It doesn't really matter here, right? Defensive fire with a 7, and they get a +2. So we'll see. Oh, they rolled a 1. So +2 is a 3. On the 7 is 1 step loss. So these guys just take 1 step, which isn't even that bad. These guys will fire here with a 4 column +2. They rolled better. A 4 + 2 is 6. So 6 on the 4 column is a 1 and a retreat. So this guy takes a step loss and actually has to retreat a hex, it appears. Oh wait, no, he doesn't even have to. His morale is high enough, so they withstand the assault. Maybe I should have rushed these guys earlier. I don't know. Okay, so now we're going to have the rest of the combats here. And you can imagine most of these are probably going to go reasonably well. There's going to be a tough battle here where we didn't get enough guys adjacent. But depending on how we choose to do the combats, that might work out differently. So, okay, is immediately captured. So these guys are captured. These guys are captured, which is significant because that was actually a full strength unit. I think it was these guys. Yeah. So that whole full strength unit got captured, which is pretty intense. These guys get captured, which is another whole strength unit that is going to be taken off the board. So all those routed guys just they're done. Now, I guess I should be advancing after combat, advancing after combat, advancing after combat. And I don't know. I guess these guys would all be disordered, I guess. And then here is kind of a weird situation. So their artillery I put at the bottom for some reason. So it's 6, it's 12. 4 to 12 is 1 to 3, but the differential is going to be +2. That's significant. It's 2 + 3. Yeah, let me double check this. All right, this ends up being a +4 on the 1 to 3 column, and I rolled a 6 plus 4, so 10 on the 1 to 3 column is something. That would be 3 step losses. So that's going to be 1, and he's probably going to retreat. This would probably be a voluntary retreat, though. So I don't think. I'm trying to see here. 3. I'll suffer route result if they lose. Okay, so yeah, these guys are routed. 1, 2. 1, 2. And basically, yeah, these guys are going to get captured potentially. It's all kinds of gnarly stuff here at the end. It all happens very fast as we get towards the end. Jeez Louise. Yeah, we captured the artillery. All right. Sorry, I had to double check because essentially this is a routed becomes a routed uh, artillery. I think I'm reasonably confident that it is, but if it wasn't, I mean, let's just say that it wasn't for a second because now you're rolling dice, and there's a whole thing artillery capture chart. You have a +1 of the die roll, and whoops, and okay, it didn't matter. We capture it anyway, of course. Okay, so they're done. Do we want to do a? I think we just let these guys be disordered and call it a day. Yeah. I'm sorry, they were down here. Okay, over here. I don't know. At this point, I think the Austrian French army is broken, so I'm not sure there's even anything to do here. But maybe we would. I think they're going to have to. Well, no, they didn't start. They didn't start the combat engage, but this could just be the end of it because you can see the entire morale track of the French and Austrians is filled up from where it started all the way down to the bottom. So when we move the morale marker, they will automatically break, is what's going to happen here. I don't think there's any way, there's really no way for them to turn that around, I don't think, unless they can, well, I guess if they get some combat successes, which technically they don't have any right now, that could make the difference, but I don't think they're going to get it. Okay, here we are at the end, and it's kind of just looking really rough for the French and Austrians. I've counted up the victory points. This is a Prussian decisive victory. The Austrians managed to get 8 victory points for eliminated Prussian units. I swear I'm going to keep calling them French by accident with the dark blue. But the Prussian units, so the French and Austrians got 8 victory points for removing 8 victory points worth of counters of the Prussians off the board. That's over here. The Prussians managed to not be demoralized and ended up doing pretty good for morale overall. All these units removed, the way you count the victory points is 1 victory point for each counter eliminated, 2 victory points for each counter captured. So if you capture a 4-step unit that has 2 counters and you captured them whole like that, you have captured 2 counters worth of units. Just keep that in mind. and then you get 2 victory points per step of artillery, and we ended up capturing 6 steps of artillery via the artillery capture table. So it's like, I forget, 49 victory points for the Prussians to 8 or something ridiculous like that. Um, Decisive Prussian victory. Now, I shouldn't be surprised because the game tells us this is what the result is going to be. It's a foregone conclusion. I did play it out just to see what would happen, far past the point where you would say, oh, I think this is going to be a Prussian victory. And I even went kind of hog wild where I could towards the end to see what I could make happen. And I have to say, I'm pretty pleased with the results generally. I think I need to be a little more careful in the future with the locked or engaged counters because as these battles get bigger, it's going to be a lot harder to keep things straight. But overall, I think we had a good time with it. The one thing I would say is I probably should have bum rushed one of these artillery areas sooner, um, because what you can end up, I, I think, I think the way the artillery stuff will work is like they're on top to fire, but if you come up on them, you fight the infantry that's with them. But if you can force all of the infantry to retreat, that's when you capture the artillery, I think. Um, I have to double check a couple of those points. It didn't matter for a lot of these because we ended up eliminating the stack enough that we captured the artillery. So there's sort of that. But um, overall, feeling pretty good about that one. That was a fun little exercise. I think it'll be more fun to try it out with the full campaign. So I may do that next. But yeah, Prussian Decisive Victory. We've kind of played through. We got a sense of the rules. I'm going to keep playing through maybe for a campaign scenario and see how that differs. But that might be a few days before I can get to that. But anyway, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you like this. At least it's something to enjoy and watch that is a little bit different. Generally, those troop quality, cohesion, morale values matter a whole lot when the combats actually come head to head. And if you are just fighting, one-to-one battles, it can get pretty nasty and bloody, and can be pretty attritional all around. With especially once you're like, if you're engaged and you stay engaged, you're going to be fighting and fighting and fighting. You have to keep fighting. You can't just disengage very easily without a relief force, and you can just get caught up, and chewed up pretty bad, which feels right, I think, for the battles it's portraying. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you in the next one. Take care. Keep gaming.